When I got engaged, I made a quiet decision to keep my $1.2 million estate under wraps, just in case. I didn't say a word about it to anyone, not even family. 2 days after the wedding, my sister showed up at our door, grinning wide with Dad right behind her. "We went ahead and put the house in my name," she said like it was a favor. "Mom said you'd be fine with it." I looked them both straight in the eye and said, "I never agreed to that." That same night, I got in touch with the bank to take a look at the documents they were talking about. By morning, they were standing outside my gate, holding moving boxes and crying like I'd done something to them. Honestly, I didn't expect them to be that bold. 2 days. Just 2 days after I said, "I do." Emma and I had just gotten home from a peaceful dinner. One of those quiet nights where the rush of the wedding has finally settled and you can finally exhale. We were unpacking together, folding towels, bickering over where to keep the mugs. Just simple newlywed stuff. Then came a knock at the door. It was my sister. She was smiling like the game was already won. Dad stood beside her, saying nothing. He always preferred silence as his weapon of choice. "Hey," she said way too cheerfully. "Just stopped by real quick. Oh, and Mom mentioned you'd be totally fine with it." Then she casually held out a stack of papers like she was handing me a birthday card. "So we signed the house into my name," she said. I looked at the documents. My name wasn't on them. Not even once. That estate, the one I quietly inherited and never once bragged about, was now titled under her. "Mom said you'd agree," she said again, like repeating it would make it true. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just blinked, looked at both of them and said calmly, "I never said yes." Then I shut the door. I didn't stick around to see if they knocked again. I didn't need to. I walked straight to the bedroom, grabbed my laptop, and sat down with the kind of numb focus that happens when your body turns colder than your thoughts. First thing I did? I logged into the estate account. Then the bank. Then the title office's online portal. I went one step at a time, securing the legal access I still had through the right channels. The security company picked up on the activity, and so did the lawyer I'd kept quietly on standby for years. That night, a formal letter went out to clarify ownership. By the time the sun came up, motion alerts pinged from the gate. They were back, boxes in hand, tears in their eyes. But I didn't open the door. Something in me had shifted. I wasn't shocked, not really. I was definitely disappointed. But more than that, I was done. When I walked into this marriage, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally respect the line between love and leverage. But that moment proved otherwise. I wasn't their brother. I wasn't their son. I was their resource. They made their move. So I made mine. I didn't get a wink of sleep that night. Not out of anger, but because my mind wouldn't stop reeling. Every memory came rushing back like a flood. It all started with those 4 words, "Mom said you'd agree." 4 simple words. 4 tiny triggers. I laid there in the dark while Emma slept, staring at the ceiling, and memory after memory came crashing in. All tied to that same twisted family logic. Not reason, entitlement. Not love, control wrapped up in care. When I was 12, Dad forgot his wallet, so I paid for our pizza using my allowance. He never paid me back. At 16, I helped my sister fake a school project just so she could graduate. Not a single thank you. At 24, I picked up a second job to help cover Mom's medical bills. Later I found out she'd spent half the money on a weekend spa retreat. And the worst part? I didn't say anything. I swallowed it. Every time I told myself, this is just what you do for family. Someday they'll get it. But they never did. What they saw was a system. A pattern. A loophole they could crawl through. I remembered the very first time I was actually used. Like really used. Like I was just a walking bank account. It was during one of Dad's financial downswings. I offered to help him sort through some business paperwork, just trying to be supportive. 3 weeks later, I found my name on a loan application I'd never even touched. When I brought it up, he just laughed. "You've always had great credit," he said, like that made it okay. That night, I pulled up my credit report. He'd used it 5 times. All to keep things afloat. None of it ever paid off. Then there was the time my sister asked for temporary access to one of my business tools. said she needed it for some freelance gig. I gave her the login. She turned around and sold access to my private platform for $600 to a stranger I'd never even heard of. I only found out when I got locked out of my own system. When I confronted her, she just grinned and said, "It was just sitting there." Just sitting there. Like the gifts I gave them on holidays. Like my name on the house deed. Like that $1.2 million estate I never once flaunted in their faces. They didn't see me. They saw what they could take. An open door. A walking opportunity. Emma asked me once, months before the wedding, if I really trusted them. I paused too long before I answered. And she caught it. She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You don't trust them. You just feel responsible for them." And she was right. It all made sense after that. The way they joked about me being the family wallet. The quiet jabs, like when Mom said during brunch, "We're just trying to be nice including you. You don't really think you matter," and everyone laughed like it was some clever joke. The house, that was the final move. Their final chess piece. They didn't think I'd push back. They assumed I'd roll over, say, "Okay," and move on. Because that's how it had always gone. They trained me to be that way. But what they didn't realize is that my silence, the one they always mistook for weakness, was actually something else. It was clarity. Awareness. I wasn't in the dark anymore. I wasn't the soft one. I was finally seeing the full pattern, crystal clear. Mom never asked for anything. She announced it. Dad never stood up for anyone. He just faded into the background. And my sister? She never once tried to explain. She always came out ahead. And every time I gave something, they took it like it was already theirs. I still remember being 8 years old, standing by the kitchen counter while Mom whispered to Dad, "He won't say no. He's easy." That's what she said, like I didn't even exist in the room. To them, I wasn't a kid with thoughts or boundaries. I was a utility. A built-in yes. And now? They'd used my name on something I hadn't even seen, called it family business, and signed it off without ever running it by me. But what they forgot, what they never even noticed, was that I wasn't that little boy anymore. I wasn't their fixer, their helper, their emergency button. I was a grown man. A man with a deed in his name. A man who had quietly built a firewall around everything he cared about. A man who had spent over 20 years observing, and who now finally saw the game for exactly what it was. They thought I'd stay quiet. What they got was clarity. And I was just getting started, laying the foundation for their collapse. In their eyes, that signature meant checkmate. They figured I'd wake up, see what they'd done, and fold, same as always. But I didn't. I was up before the sun, sitting at the edge of my bed, just watching the numbers roll through my mind. 1.2 million. One estate. 6 different moves they'd made to try to steal what never belonged to them. And now? One last, final shutdown. By 6 a.m., I was logged in and locked in. My computer looked like a battlefield. Financial dashboards on one screen, title documents on another, recordings, message threads, timestamped screenshots. First thing I did was lock down the deed. Not just through legal filings, but digitally too. I rerouted every single alert and access attempt to a secured legal inbox. Any edits, any login, any signature, they'd all trigger a warning. Then I turned to the trust account. I'd set that up quietly before the engagement, right after I caught my sister going through a drawer labeled private. The trust was divided 3 ways. One part for estate upkeep, one for emergencies, and one for discretionary family support. All invisible. All under my complete control. That morning, I revoked the discretionary part. Within 20 minutes, my lawyer got the alert and confirmed the change. Then I went even deeper. Their phone lines? Still tied to the family plan I'd been covering for years. I didn't shut them off outright. I transferred ownership to each of them. They had 72 hours to accept it. If they didn't, service would go dead. Then there was Dad's car. Technically, it was still registered under my name. It had been a gift, yeah, but like everything else, it came with conditions. That afternoon, I called the DMV, updated the paperwork, and arranged for the tow company to retrieve it. Not out of spite. Out of precision. They declared open season on my life. Now I was shutting the gates tight. Emma came in while I was still on hold with the cloud service provider. She didn't say anything at first, just set a mug of coffee beside me, glanced at all the windows open on my screen, and asked, "Do they even realize what's about to hit them?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "They really don't." By noon, the revocation letters were sent. Bank access was revoked. The joint credit card was frozen. I sent a final message to my CPA. From this point forward, only my signature counts. Period. I also added one last clause into the estate's governing agreement. Anyone who tried to fraudulently transfer title would be permanently removed from ever receiving a cent from the trust again. At exactly 2:13 p.m., I sent my sister one message. "You forged a future that was never yours. It ends today." And then I logged out. That evening, they came back. Boxes in their hands. Eyes puffy and red from crying. My sister's voice was quieter now, more careful. "We didn't mean anything by it," she said. "Mom thought you'd be okay. You weren't using the house anyway." That sentence. "You weren't using the house anyway." I opened the front door halfway. Just enough for them to see my face, but not enough for them to step inside. "This was never about the house," I told them. "It's about how sure you were I'd never say no." Dad stepped forward. "Let's talk inside," he said. "No," I replied. "We're talking right here." My sister gently placed one of the boxes on the ground. "We were just packing up our things." "We're sorry, all right? We shouldn't have." I cut her off. "It's already in the hands of the lawyers. Everything." She snapped. "You called a lawyer? This is family." "Exactly," I said. "And family doesn't forge legal documents. Family doesn't grab ownership without asking. And family sure as hell doesn't cut someone out and then cry at the gate." Silence fell. Then Dad, like clockwork, tried to twist the moment. He shifted his tone, softened his words. "You're overreacting. We didn't even take anything. The title hasn't been processed yet." "You're right," I said. "Because I stopped it." And that landed hard. I could see it hit him, the first real blow. The first time they realized they'd miscalculated. For years, I let them believe I was just the nice guy. The quiet one. The go-to fixer. But I wasn't being generous. I was being strategic. And now? The open support? That was over. Done. The next morning, I logged into my private archive and set the final sequence into motion. 3 letters. One to the estate attorney. One to the compliance team at the title office. And one to the local board that handles financial misconduct, flagging the attempted transfer for potential fraud investigation. Emma read each letter before I sent them. "They're not coming back from this," she said. "I'm not asking them to," I told her. By Thursday, the estate was triple-locked. My financial accounts were secure. Everything they once had access to was gone. But I wasn't done yet. I reached out to the private medical foundation that had been quietly covering part of Mom's medication expenses through a referral I'd submitted years ago. I withdrew the support. Kindly. Legally. And with full documentation. The email I sent was polite. The impact? Anything but. That same afternoon, I drove out to the property. I walked through it by myself. Past the hallway where we used to tape up our childhood drawings. Those were gone now. Replaced with silence. I pulled up the security app on my phone and removed their access to the smart lock. Then I changed the passcode. I stepped out the front door, turned back, and watched it close behind me. And just like that, it was over. No anger. No big scene. Just a reset. I knew this was going to shake them. I just didn't expect it to hit so fast, or so loud. At first, there was nothing. The kind of silence that almost made me think they were actually processing what happened. But by the next morning, my phone was buzzing non-stop like a broken fire alarm. 17 missed calls. 9 voicemails. All coming from the contact still labeled home, a name I hadn't updated in years. I didn't listen to a single one. I forwarded the first voicemail straight to my lawyer. Then I switched my phone to airplane mode and sat back down to finish breakfast. Emma watched me, chewing slowly, like she expected something to explode. "You think they'll show up again?" she asked. I nodded. "They only know one move." Sure enough, at 3:04 p.m., there they were. Same street. Same driveway. Same fake humility written all over their faces. Dad stood stiff with his arms crossed, not like a parent, but like some foreman inspecting a broken employee. My sister paced back and forth in front of the gate, phone in hand, filming herself. I figured it'd end up on Facebook under some dramatic caption like, "You never realize how cold someone is until they stop loving you." I watched them from upstairs. I didn't budge. Then the yelling began. My sister started it, loud and a little unhinged. "You really think this is gonna work? You think you can freeze us out and still play the victim?" she shouted. She hurled something at the gate, a manila folder. It fluttered to the ground like a sad protest sign that never had a chance. "You can't do this to your family," she screamed. I cracked the window open just enough and gave her one line. "I didn't do this." "You did." That lit the match. Dad jumped in, voice shaking with fury. "This isn't over," he barked. "You don't get to lock us out and pretend you're innocent." He wasn't shaking from sadness. This was rage, the kind that burns when control slips through your fingers. He shouted words I hadn't heard since I was 13 and forgot to mow the lawn. "You think you can treat me like I'm nothing?" he snarled. "You think just 'cause you've got money, you can treat us like trash? You owe us." Those 3 words hit hard. Emma stepped into the doorway behind me. "Do they seriously think this helps their case?" "They think being loud means being right," I said. "But they don't get it. I'm already gone." At 6:12 p.m., the emails started rolling in. The first came from Mom's account. The subject line read, "Urgent. Let's be reasonable." I didn't even bother opening it. The preview told me all I needed to know. It's not too late to fix this before the lawyers get involved. Too late? I sent it straight to my attorney. 10 minutes later, another email landed, this one from Dad's work address. It had a PDF attached. Title, "Cease and Desist." I actually laughed. They were really trying to flip the script. The letter accused me of causing emotional harm, denying them access to shared assets, and my personal favorite, unlawful revocation of jointly used family property. It read like a bad TV drama written by someone who thinks shouting equals storytelling. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat down and wrote a formal response for my lawyer. 3 full pages. I attached legal proof of sole ownership, screenshots of account access, login records, even a time-stamped photo from 2 years ago showing me handing over the house keys to myself. We wrapped it up with a clear statement. Your client has no legal claim. Continued harassment will be met with legal action. This is your official notice. By Friday, the masks were off. My sister went live on Instagram. I figured she would. She cried on camera, talked about betrayal, said she was being punished just for being close to our parents. And of course, her followers ate it up. Hearts. Cry emojis. Stay strong. The whole thing. But I wasn't watching for the drama. I was watching for slip-ups. And she made one. Midstream, she accidentally flipped the camera. And just for a second, it showed the inside of Dad's office, and the drawer where we used to keep the emergency binder. The same one that held backups of my account info. The same one I quietly emptied and removed last year. They didn't know I'd taken it. But my lawyer caught it. He flagged it immediately. Told me that if they even touched one piece of data in that binder, or tried impersonating me online, we'd have a case for criminal charges. So we waited. It didn't take long. That Sunday afternoon, my bank flagged a login attempt. It came from an unknown device, using an old recovery email linked to my dad's ISP. 2 minutes later, someone tried to access my digital trust dashboard. That attempt failed too. I locked everything. Filed an official incident report with the service provider. Sent it off to the same legal team I'd kept on retainer for 3 years. This time, we included a trigger for a criminal cyber investigation. At 10:27 p.m., I got a text from Mom. Just 3 words. "What have you done?" I didn't respond. By Monday, things kicked up another level. One of my cousins called, one of the few I still liked and trusted. She sounded hesitant. "Hey," she said gently. "Your mom's telling people you've lost it." That you've completely gone off the rails. That you're tearing the family apart, she said. I just replied, she's the one who destroyed it. I just turned on the lights. That night, the group chat blew up. Apparently, my sister had been sending screenshots of our estate papers to extended family, spinning the story her way. Claiming I'd stolen money that was shared. Claiming I was emotionally unstable. She even sent a cropped email from me, one she'd clearly edited. But she wasn't smart enough to crop out the timestamp. The real email still existed. And my lawyer had it. We collected everything. Falsified documents. Defamation. Illegal attempts to access accounts. We sent a formal notice, any more public lies, and we'd file a lawsuit. They had 72 hours to retract their statements and apologize in writing. Or else, we'd take legal action. That night, Dad texted me again. Just one line. You're turning your back on blood. I answered, I'm stepping away from those who only took. The next morning, Emma and I headed to a quiet diner for breakfast. No phones. No distractions. Just sunlight and pancakes. I looked at her and said, I think the storm's almost over. She smiled and said, no. It's just passing over their house now. They had crafted their own version of the story. I shared the truth. It started with whispers. Cousins I hadn't heard from in months suddenly texting, I heard things got complicated. Maybe you should call Mom. Even an old high school friend messaged, your sister posted something weird. Are you okay? That's when I knew the tide had turned. They weren't satisfied with guilt anymore. Now, they wanted to control the story. To burn my name before I could tell my side. My sister started posting cryptic stories, black backgrounds, white text. Some people turn their backs on the ones who raised them. You think you know someone? Mom posted an old photo of the 5 of us, captioned, before money changed everything. The flood of sympathy emojis poured in. Karen wrote, you were such a close family. So sad to see it fall apart. That's when I stopped defending. The next morning, I emailed every cousin, every relative, every mutual contact caught in their web. No ranting. No accusations. Just a 14-page PDF. Timestamps. Screenshots. Bank transfers. Legal documents. A timeline of events. With one line on top. You're free to believe what you want. But this is what actually happened. I didn't explain any further. Just signed it with my name and let the silence speak. It didn't take long. By noon, 2 cousins replied. I had no idea. One even forwarded me a private message from my sister asking them to ignore anything I said, claiming I was spinning the story. That message got flagged and sent to my attorney. At 3:42 p.m., I got a surprise call from an old manager of my sister's. I hadn't spoken to her in years. She said, I know this is awkward, but she listed you as a professional reference. After reading what's floating around online, she trailed off. I didn't try to help her out. I just said, I'd be careful putting anything in writing on her behalf. By 5 p.m., I was on the phone with the family's old accountant, the one I'd brought back after uncovering the forged paperwork. He said quietly, they're cracking, Mike. You were right. There are holes in every story they told. And the digital logs you provided? Devastating. He paused. You ready to press charges? I didn't answer right away. Because this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishment. It was about ending the game. So I said, not yet. But we're going public. That evening, I met with my lawyer. We drafted a public statement, short, professional, factual. No adjectives. Just dates, actions, confirmed facts. We pointed out the forged title transfer, the unauthorized financial access, the recent defamation. We posted it on a neutral platform. Then linked it in a personal post. When silence is used to rewrite history, sometimes the only answer is the truth. That was mine. The post didn't go viral, but it reached a wide audience fast. By midnight, over 11,000 views. Hundreds of comments. Not all supportive, but enough. Enough to shift the balance. Enough to stop their story in its tracks. The misunderstandings started to surface. The next morning, the CPA messaged me. They've gone quiet, she said. At 11:17 a.m., I got a call from a private number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Mom. Her voice soft. Well, we didn't know it would go this far. Please call me. I didn't. Instead, I sent one final letter through my attorney. A cease and desist for online defamation. And a formal release ending all past support. Any future contact had to go through legal counsel. I added one last clause. Your silence is now required, not requested. That afternoon, my sister deleted half her posts. My dad took down his profile. Mom blocked me. I didn't care. I wasn't looking for reconciliation. I just wanted the truth to speak louder than their fiction. For the first time in years, it did. They came back one last time. No yelling. No tears. No fake apologies. Just Mom, standing alone outside the gate. Holding a photo album like some kind of peace offering. She buzzed once. Then waited. Emma asked, "Want me to handle it?" "No," I said. "This one's mine." I stepped out but didn't open the gate. Just stood on the porch, arms crossed. Mom looked smaller than I remembered. Older. But the album in her hands? An attempt to reconnect, disguised as memories. "We were wrong," she said. "But you made it cruel." I didn't say a word. She flipped open the album and held it toward me like I'd melt at the sight of baby pictures. "You were always the quiet one. The good one." "That's why you thought I'd never leave," I replied. Her lips pressed tight. "We just want things back." "They were never yours to begin with, Mom." She blinked once. "So that's it." I nodded. "You didn't lose the dinner." I left to protect my peace. Then I turned and walked back inside. Left her standing there with an album full of memories she tried to use like currency. And this time, I didn't look back.